And we should be live now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the DominoGuru.com Development and Design Mentoring Services series. And what did we name this one? Getting Started with Foundation UI, JavaScript Framework in IBM Lotus Notes Domino XPages. In this screencast, we're going to cover downloading, installing, setting up Foundation UI, which is a responsive JavaScript and CSS framework, and then using that framework within your IBM Lotus Domino XPages application design. Show you how to set that up, how to actually surface it. Time provided, we'll go into some more advanced trickery, theming, creating custom controls, etc., etc. But right out of the box, it's pretty simple. So we actually should be able to get to that. I'm going to give it a few more minutes and allow those who maybe don't have the URL to come aboard. So just sit tight. And it's like we have 2 live viewers. For those viewing live, you will see within the chat, the Google Hangouts, you'll see a group chat listed on the right-hand side. At any time, you can click in there, ask a question. There will be an open Q&A towards the end of this screencast, to where you can ask me any questions, of course, pertaining to the subject matter, but if it goes crazy, we can ask any questions. We'll be starting the screencast in earnest in just a few moments, allowing people to trickle in. And for those who might be hearing background clutter or background noise, I will forewarn, I work out of a home office and have 5 children. So you will invariably hear noises throughout the background. Just consider it ambiance. Okay, we are closing in. 4 live viewers, welcome. And for those of you who joined after I made this announcement, on the right-hand side of your Hangout window, you'll see the group chat. You should be able to click and answer any question, or you'll be able to ask questions within that section. We're going to open it up for open QA towards the end of the screencast. And I think we're looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and start this screencast. So what exactly is, thanks Richard for the retweet, what exactly is Foundation UI? Foundation UI is a responsive web framework, responsive web design framework. And you see here that content's actually reshuffling as I'm resizing this window. That's pretty much it. Now, the idea is you write once, run anywhere. Oh, thanks. Write once, run anywhere So you can write it for the desktop, tablets, and smartphones. But Foundation was really the pioneer in the mobile first methodology, in that you're writing for a mobile device first, but it'll scale upward to a desktop. Since then, Bootstrap 3, I believe, adopted the same paradigm. Moving forward, they have their grid system is a mobile first, trending towards the desktop, because more and more of our target audience, you can't get away with saying that mobile is a feature added in a phase 2 or phase 3. It's almost expected out of the box for an enterprise application right now to have smartphone and tablet support within that first phase. Otherwise, it's really not that big of a success. At least that's what I'm seeing. So I picked Foundation UI to get started with. There are tons of examples out there that we can choose from. There's a lot of questions on what Foundation is compared to Bootstrap. Foundation is more of a, you're in charge of your own UI design. The Foundation just gives you the foundation, the framework, that basic set of tools, so you can really bring whatever design you want. Where Bootstrap is great for rapid prototyping, rapid design, because a lot of the UI features are already built in. You have a lot of the UI elements that are already surfaced. And that's not to say the Foundation doesn't have its own share of UI elements that are available to you. Bootstrap happens to have more. But if you are of a design mind, or you have a corporate style guide that you have to adhere to, the Bootstrap UI might conflict, and that's where Foundation really hits a sweet spot. If you have corporate design guides, which you absolutely should, to create high fidelity across your applications, to speed up user adoption, Foundation for me is the way to go. Now, Foundation runs on top of jQuery. It uses jQuery as its core JavaScript framework. So when we go to foundation.zurb.com, which I already have up on screen, you're going to go to the Download Foundation 5 section. You're going to see all these different options. Now, if I go full screen here, and you can see you can actually go in and customize it. We're not going to worry about the custom builds. And again, you can see the menu structures. You get the nice, what they refer to as the hamburger icon with this awesome side menu, which I really like. And everything stacks here. So we're going to go to complete. We're just going to grab everything. So we're going to download. I'm going to throw this into my download, and Foundation 533. So we'll remember that. I'm going to say we're going to download that. Pretty simple stuff. I'm going to show this in the folder, which I have on another screen. Bear with. And I'm going to extract all to the Foundation 33 folder. That's all we really need this. Outside of reference, we've got everything that we need in here. Within the JavaScript, you'll see, within the vendor folder, you'll see we come with jQuery. Now, this is non-minimized jQuery, but it is available. There are also Modernizer and a few other JavaScript frameworks that are JavaScript libraries that we can use on top of Foundation. There's a lot of really cool plugins right out of the box. And just to verify that you do have this up and running, it's always good to just open up the index and say, oh, okay, it looks fine, but does it actually restack? And it does. So we know that we've got everything working. So we'll go ahead, we'll close out of this. We'll keep this up in the background. I'll go ahead and minimize. We'll keep this here. And I started a very basic Foundation UI database. Now, it's Control-N. The only thing I changed in here was the XSP properties, turning on the runtime error page in case we want to see the stack trace, in case I screw this up. And I also modify the ACL just to set default and anonymous to manager, just so we didn't have to go through authentication. It's not really the point of this this screencast. I will say that this Foundation UI example database will be available for download in the demo section on dominoguru.com, so definitely check that out. So how do we get started? We've downloaded Foundation. We see that it's up and running. How do we get started? Now, historically, you would go into resources and you would load the images and files in. And you can do that if you import a resource. So I will go down to not pictures. I will go down to libraries, and do I not have downloads included in my libraries? Probably not. So here we go. I'll go down here. I'll grab this. I'll go into JS. I'll just grab this one because it's proving the point. And you can see that it actually chops off all the directory information. Now, the directory structure is critical more when it comes to the CSS, not so much the JavaScript. However, you will have to hack/slash your way through here, or you could say, well, I'll just duplicate in the alias AS blah foo foundation.min.js. And yes, you could do that, but it really, there's a much more simple way, and it's a much more maintainable way, and I'll show you. Go ahead and delete that. If I go into Package Explorer, now the Package Explorer view is available from Windows, Show Eclipse views, and it's actually surfaced right at the top. But if you need to go in and you don't see this available, I'm running 9.01 Domino Designer. If you go into Other, and you'll scroll down and you will see, is it in Java? Yeah, it's in Java. Package Explorer, click OK, and it'll open. I happen to have my perspective customized to my personal preference. It would just open up in another pane, I think down here, where you can drag it wherever you'd like and set that up. Now that you've gotten that tutorial out of the way, we're going to open up our database. Now this is the Foundation UI database. You can see FUI. So we've opened up that database, and we'll go into the web content directory. And directly from the web content directory, we're going to click Import. Now we're going to save the file system, and we're going to browse to the directory that we want, which is within our downloads, Foundation 5.3. And you know what? We'll grab everything. And that includes all the JavaScript, all the images, all the CSS. And we'll say Finish. And you can see here it actually maintains its structure. You've got the CSS, you've got JavaScript, you've got your Foundation, all the nice libraries set up. You've got the vendor directory with jQuery, with all the other libraries. You've got your Foundation min, you've got including your index. And the reason that you want to include this right away, I have no XPages. I have really no design elements. However, I am going to want to test this. So, and what did I name that? Demo on air FUI.NSF. And I know I'm off screen right now. So I pulled up the URL, hit the database, and hit that resource, and you can see that because it's included, and I'll actually put these side by side for a moment, because these are included within the web content directory, all these resources are now available from the root of the database. So if I wanted to go to robots.txt, it's available from the root. So now in order to use it. And you can see there's absolutely nothing in here. We're going to start. Let me just bring that back to something that we could see. So we're going to want to start with probably a custom control to handle our layout. And what you'll need to know here is how to create a custom control and how to use the callback control. So that's pretty basic XPages. If you're familiar with that, if not, you get to learn it here. So we'll start off with the custom control, and we'll call that layout. And what I tend to do here is I'll set a few panels. Clean up the code. So let's just say we'll keep those panels as they are. Now, here's a nifty little trick. If you create a panel and you don't assign any other attributes to it, with the exception of one, if you assign a theme ID or you leave it attribute free, it will not generate an HTML div by default. If you give this an ID, it will create a div, or you give it any additional attributes. This is a great feature to have. You wonder, well, no, I put the panel in there. Why isn't it generating? XPages gives you the ability to not generate, which is really slick. If we get into theming, if we have the time to go into theming, I'll show you how you can enable this or disable this, but that'll probably be for a part 2. And you can conditionally control what renders and what does not render, in that what generates an output tag, what generates HTML output, and what does not. But getting ahead of myself. So I've got my nice little container set up here, and I'm going to completely cheat because I've already written this part, just so you don't have to see me typing like a madman. I've gone and I've linked directly to, from the root to jQuery to Foundation, and I've gone ahead and loaded that up. Now, where we get this, if you check out the documentation for Foundation, there's a getting started documentation. So getting started is actually going to walk you through what you're going to need to know out of the box, and the CSS, as far as what files, what you'll need to include, what you won't need to include, and this is the example markup. So let me just maximize that so we can see it all on screen. So we're going to add different HTML meta tags. We're going to add the links to the normalized CSS and Foundation CSS, and then we're going to load Modernizer. We're going to load that in the head, but as per more the current standard, we're going to load the JavaScript at the lower end of our UI. So you can take the CSS, right out of the, just including these resources, and how we would do that, even though they are within, they're not technically available within these drop downs. If I go in and I add a style sheet, even though one's not available, it's going to make me go through this. So you can go ahead and just leave that there. Just if you wanted to use the wizard approach and see how you have the /foo.css, you're actually going to get rid of all that. get rid of all the resources. And you can go, put these side by side. You can go right from here and say, same thing if you want to add JavaScript, resources, and a JavaScript library. Let's see if it actually picks it up. No, of course it doesn't. But let's save that. And since you're going to be creating these anyway, you might as well, I'm going to rename this to application.css and javascript.css, since you're going to have those anyway. That's fine. So I'm going to add that resource. Sorry. I'm going to add that JavaScript library. That's what I was doing. And that's all we're going to need up top. Let's add those metadata. So property name, we're going to do char set. And the content's going to be TF8. And another metadata tag, and that's going to be viewport, and that's going to be something that I copy to save everyone the aggravation of watching me type. So we'll click OK. You can see the markup's actually generated this nice little look. Everything looks good. Let me just format it so it's more easily read. Now we get into what we're going to use for the we're actually going to use the divs that we created. So the way that Foundation works is we'll take a look at the grid system. So if you take a look at the grid, it uses a row and columns with a small, medium, and large declaration. Now, this mobile first mentality defines that you go from a smaller device upward. So the smallest rule reigns. So if you're on a small device, a smartphone, for example, this column is going to be 2. It's going to be 2 for a medium-sized device. And then it hits large and jumps to 4. If you had a medium in here and not a large, it would stay the medium designation for the large and what you would call an extra large display if you've got a ridiculously high resolution screen like my new laptop does. Or if you just designate a small, it's going to stay the small. So you'll see some of the markup is just small 12. It's a 12 grid or 12 column grid. So do the math. And there's offsets. There's all really cool stuff that you can do. But on a whole, we're going to stay with the very basic small and work our way up, keeping it 12. We're not going to offset. We're not going to do anything like that. And you can see that even though you're designating the medium, it's still staying the same size as the small. It just interprets the rules and moves them around based off of, oh, okay, do I go large here? No, I have a medium. I don't have a large designation, and my screen is set to a large. Let me work backwards from my size and see what rule applies. Again, with that mobile first, or looking for the smaller device design first and scaling upward. So I'm going to define columns. Alternately, if you look at the documentation, you can define a column. I always felt that was more appropriate because columns is plural, where I'm designating an individual column. So if I were to do, actually this first, the outer container, sorry, is a row. And then you get into the columns. So let's do column small 6, medium, or you know what, let's do small 12, medium 6. And throw an H1 in there. And then I'll go in to where I'm going with this. Basically just setting up a dummy example. That's right, we'd be there by now. So we need a X page to house this in. Let's call this home. Let's go to our properties. Let's go to our custom controls, drag this on. And because I've already set it up, should just be a matter of doing that. So if I take a look at this small screen, the div is, it's not loading that. Bear with, let me find out why. Yeah, that's in a 404. Oh, my pathing must be off. Bear with. Oh, it's the and those should be no, we're just not allowing that. You know when you do a live demo and things don't go your way? That is awesome. Okay. So let's find out why. I'd love to blame my development server here if that were indeed the case. Yeah, that should be loading. Did I not include Modernizer when I... Vendor Modernizer is there. Oh, it's because I misspelled Modernizer because I'm... The good news is it's nothing code-wise that's causing the problem. It's all a PEPCAC. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. So let's see if I can continue to make a fool out of myself. So, okay. This is half of the larger display. And as I scroll this down, you'll see it actually goes to the full length of the display. If I were to highlight this, it's the full screen. And it's the full screen here. But if I go and I maximize this, it's only half the screen. And that's Foundation doing its job. Now you can see this is very basic. It's just the grid system. However, you can start ripping into all the elements here, start ripping it apart. If you spell Modernizer, the hacktastic way that or the leet way that they spell it, apparently. I was spelling it the regular way and caused a problem. So let's actually make this a control. Now, arguably the easiest way to do this would be to just say, okay, the entire thing is going to be within a style class row, then small 12. And again, if you're going 12 for the grid, that's really all you need. So let's call this content. Windows 8 and me boxing right there. Go back to my home page. There's my content. Probably want to create a design definition. All right. The obligatory hello world. So there you go. So this is within the div column. You get this funky scroll here because the form actually adds a bottom one rem. See if I disable that. So that is something that within our application.css, we'll want to load that in. We'll want to clean up so there's no auto, because the web standard, the out-of-the-box XPages adds sets the HTML form to 100% of the height, and Foundation adds a 1 rem border on the bottom. So all we're going to do is say that the margin bottom is 0, and just to make sure that it listens to us, we're going to force it to listen to us. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're actually adding the resource. And I'm going the longest way just so you can see that there's no trickery per se. Sorry, that was a slip. I clicked on IE. God help us all. Just wanted to pull up the Hangout window. Okay, and just a reminder to anyone that's actually watching, on the right-hand side of your Hangout window, you'll see a chat message or a chat option to where you can enter any questions. If you don't have that option, feel free to send me a tweet at Chris Toohey. That's at ChrisToohey, where you'll be able to ask a question, because we're about to get into the QA side of things after I clean this up just a little bit. So here we go. Let's make this actually functional. So you've got your panel, you've got your rows, you've got your callback. We've seen how that works in here. That's cool. Now you can actually set up nested rows. So if I want to set a panel and style class row, and then panel style class column small 12. We'll go ahead and you'll see the nested columns work if I wanted to. Okay, so the small 12 is going to go all the way across the board, and then I could have within that small 12, I could break down individual grids. So you have a grid within a grid, really get some functional stuff. Now, the next place that I would take this logically would be to create a theme, get rid of a lot of this. So I'm actually going to do that and create cleaner markup. First, we talked about out of the box an XP panel not generating markup if we don't want it to. So I'm going to, here's a nice little trick. You go in, so you have the form, row, column. Even though I'm using a panel and I've set a facet name doesn't tell the Java classes when they go through the JSF to generate or when they go through the build to write out an HTML div. So you can create cleaner markup that way and not have spans and divs that you have to hack through CSS to get around. And did I add, oh yeah, I didn't save, which is why we still have the scroll. Okay, we got rid of that scroll. Let's go in and let's start making this thing pretty slick. So I'm going to, it's a theme ID instead. I'm just leaving it like that. And again, we're going for a few extra little tips. You would see absolutely nothing because I cleaned out the callback, so there's no markup being sent, even though there's panels and panels and panels. So let's go in and let's create a theme that uses all this. So we'll create a theme. We'll call this Foundation. Foundation, we're going to have it extend web standard because I'm extremely lazy and don't feel like boxing one UI. And extremely lazy, we're going to keep this. So let's call our foundation row and set the tag name. So div. What I meant to do, but it'll work. Let's set the style class to and I'm going to create a column and the style class. Nope, why did I do that? Div column road tag. Okay, so what this is going to do is I'll set the theme again. If I haven't set the theme, I go and I refresh. Nothing's coming out. Oh, except that because I set the style class. But you can see nothing's actually generating. So I'll go in here and say that the theme is going to be Foundation. Foundation extends web standard. So we get the same rule sets. Oh, I must have screwed up that theme. Hold on one second. Well, at least it told me when I was saving it. Thank you, DDE. Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for that. You look like a schmuck. So here we go. Div row, div class columns. Now if I go back to my hello world and set we now have Foundation grid system working. Now, more on Foundation before we get into the open Q&A. There are tons of features, functions within Foundation. You've got your menu systems, which you can set up right out of the box, and you can get in to all that. But at the end of the day, it's all markup, and it's all markup being generated and sent. XPages is great at that. You can just customize the markup to what it needs to be so that the framework can take over. We do that with DominoGuru.com, the new redesign. You can see here it's a fully responsive site. We've got the sidebar menu here. Nice stuff. It's all jQuery based. This carousel, you can use these, and it'll also continue on with an auto rotation. This is nothing but the, where's the orbit? Orbit slider. Right out of the box with Foundation. And to set it up, it's an unordered list with list items generating, and I think in each list item I have a card. But you can set captions, you can set, right now I just have it. I don't remember if I added the captions back. But, oh yeah, I added the captions back, but included the image in the background, customized it to fit my particular needs. But if I minimize that, you can see it takes up the full width. And same content here. So it works just as well on a mobile device. In fact, I actually really like how it works on a mobile device. So if you need your tips and tricks and content and whatnot available to you when you're on a smartphone, or you want to pull up something, you can do it right there. And that is pretty much it for the getting started. In this, we covered downloading and importing in via Package Explorer. You've got all your content here. Of course, I would go and delete index.html and the humans and robots, unless you want the indexing to auto occur for you, because you don't want people to hit index.html thinking they're pulling up a page and actually just pulling up the Foundation example page. Maintaining this is easy. If you're going to download the next version of Foundation UI, you're going to do an import, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to overwrite foundation.css and foundation.min and et cetera, et cetera? And you can say, yeah, I really do. Let me just go ahead and update that, and wow, I'm done. If you're going to use Foundation across multiple databases, however, it might be best to install it on the server, and of course that's just installing in the HTML directory on the Domino server. And I think the path off the top of my head is Domino Data HTML. Install it in there, and it's freely available at the same root level access that you have these. So it would actually take nothing but removing these design elements in Package Explorer, and then it would just pick up on the server. I'm going to open it up for QA. If anyone has any questions, they can feel free to post them in the group chat available on the right-hand side if you are watching this live. If you'd like to send me a question, feel free to tweet at Chris Toohey. And check and see if anyone sent anything over. Again, this database will be available for download. This screencast and all the flubs and hiccups is being recorded, and will be available via YouTube. So you can watch and laugh and gather around and say, look, he couldn't spell modernizer correctly. But you can see it's very simple. If I can do it, anyone can. Obviously, the graduation of this would be taking our layout page, creating a layout for a page, and actually building this thing out. So it's not just one callback, but you might have tons of different callbacks and set up your grid how you're going to want all your pages commonly accessible or commonly structured, and then tweak the content so as you see fit. We're doing that with Dhamma Guru, and I'm doing it with all the other foundation type content. This theming ID becomes really nice, where you can continue to add on and manipulate. However, if you want to be able to swap out themes, you might want to consider going with calculated themes and coming up with a structure that, because theme IDs can compute, you might want to have something that returns, this might be column, let's just say if I was calculating this, I'd say JavaScript return theme ID and do something like that, or just say column, and then with the style class, manipulate it to meet your needs. But then when you swap it out, you'd be able to calculate that. So if you're switching between Bootstrap and Foundation, or Bootstrap, Foundation, and a custom theme, or Bootstrap, Foundation, custom theme, and one UI, or a generic web standard, you'd be able to manipulate this the same way that you would anything else. But that gets into another topic entirely. So let's just go back to using core foundation right out of the box. So looks like there's no questions. That means you guys are just soaking it in, which is awesome, or you're bored to tears. Either way, this database will be available for download. You can rip it apart, but for what it is, it's pretty basic. There will be a follow-up to this, which is the Foundation UI Advanced, where we go into more with theming, more with calculation. That's going to come out at a later time. Our next Hangout on air, let me just double check. If you go on to downloadguru.com, scroll down, you're always going to be able to see the latest upcoming events, and that's going to be getting started with layout custom controls in IBM Notes Domino XPages. That's actually going to be live this Wednesday, 11 to 12 Eastern Time, where I go over pretty much the same way I did this layout, but we're going to deep dive, and I'll show you how you would set up the different calculated JavaScript, calculated theme IDs, JavaScript-based theme IDs, and JavaScript-based style classes. So you can build a theme switcher, and your content is going to adhere, because the content itself never changes. If you're looking at a form, it doesn't matter whether you're loading Bootstrap or one UI. That's still an input field. The content surrounding it, however, could drastically change. So I'm actually going to answer Tony. He just asked the question. And Tony, since you're the only one asking a question, I'm going to answer it, whether it's not necessarily to the content. But Tony asks, the screen is showing very small. Is that the way Hangouts work, or is it something on my end? If you're watching this within a window not maximized, I'm running 1080p resolution, so what's that, 1080 by 1920. I can try to resize that, but that's what it's coming out for full HD. I don't know what live is allowing, but you might be able to maximize that screen so you can see more. You will be able to see it full resolution at that resolution, full HD, during the recording, so, or the rebroadcast on the YouTube channel. So, you know, you'll be able to see it then. But thank you very much, Tony, for the question. And let me know if maximizing it actually works. I can only see one side of it. And Hangouts on Air are great. They allow me to reach out and interact, but it's still early enough tech that it can be. Oh, Tony says he tried to go, well, you guys can see it on screen, tried to go full screen, it flashes and returns. Maybe that's something with the Hangout on Air. Definitely worth checking out. I might reach out to you, Tony, or somebody that's got some available time. We'll play around with Hangouts on Air to see how that works. The one thing that I have been playing around with recently, which is Google Helpouts. Google Helpouts is a new content creator service that they allow. I'll just pull that up. Nothing like a shameless plug. So if I go into my listings, I have all of these helpouts available, and the first one's free. So if we want to try it out, we certainly can. But the idea here is the mentoring is charged at $25 for 30 minutes, $1.99 per minute, and that's how all the prices are. Especially since I'm working for myself, wanted to test this out. So you'll be able to actually come in here and say, hey, you know, I need help with a custom layout, or I need help. I've gotten past getting started with Foundation. I need some help because I can't get the grid system working or something like that. So why don't you pop on? Again, first one's free, and any further help. It actually works out really nicely. And I haven't had this problem with the helpouts where the screen's flickered or anything like that. Of course, I've used Chrome, and everyone that's come into this has been using Chrome, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It definitely does warrant further testing. So, Tony, thank you for bringing that up. Definitely, we'll connect and see if we can figure that out. Any other questions about Foundation UI? Again, that's at foundation.zurb.com. There will be follow-up replays of this screencast. Again, for your entertainment and watching me try to spell modernizer. You will be able to check that out online, and I'll also be writing up an article, step-by-step how-to, which will be published as a feature on dominoguru.com. So definitely check that out as well. And we're coming to the end of the hour. If there's no other questions, I want to thank everyone who attended this first dominoguru.com hangout rather of the season. We're going to be having a lot more. I'd like to get to a schedule where we do 2 of these a week. Just interacting with the community. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I certainly did, despite the misspellings and the flubs, but you get to see that it's a process and not some canned, well, I've grabbed this content, copy, paste it, and moved it over here. Oh, here's a question. Have you used Foundation for web apps besides websites, or for BS websites? That can go either way. I have, actually. Let me go ahead and show you the CMS that runs DominoGuru.com. If you take a look at DominoGuru.com the way it is now, and Tony, thank you for asking a question. Honestly, I was getting a little worried that everyone was like, ugh, in this. God bless you, man. This entire site is just markup. Oh, versus. Okay, thank you. I was, well, either way, if we're talking BS sites, you know, bring up DominoGuru.com. You see here that this is not XPages generated markup. It's XPages delivered markup, but it's not XPages generated markup. And this site is really the first. Oh, thanks, Mike. Mike Kelly says he's looking forward to Wednesday. So am I. This is an example app without voiding non-disclosure, so that I can talk about. And this is my XPages based CMS. So it's based off of selecting a site, and you can now manage all the content. So if I come into here, I can see posts. Looks pretty familiar, right? Pages down at the bottom, content here. If I wanted to search for, there I go with the misspelling again. Wow. I can see content. I could see, hey, here's a Hangout event published. Be able to go in here. You see my own hackneyed version of EL that's used to generate the site. If I put this into edit mode, see it's using rich text. So it's using a blend of core controls as well as CSS manipulation of core controls. You see here it's not 100%, but it gets the job done. It's a name picker. But it also the grid system, the resizing. You can see here that the resizing, you've got the same menu system over here. So this foundation out of the box. If I click off of that, if you want to always have that aside, I built a little feature in here. It's because this happens to be edited. Let me go to here, and then it'll transition seamlessly. So I can make that sticky, so it appears here. If I click on here, it'll actually suck the hamburger icon up here, so I'm always using the aside. And I can play around with that. But as far as having events, pages, and you can do some, you can really get tricky with this. So there's like, let's go to the About page. And this is just very simple markup. And I'm using the, I forget what this is called, but it's syntax highlighter in edit mode, so I can actually go full screen with this and start making changes. So very basic out-of-the-box stuff, but it's an application, fully functional XPage application that uses Foundation UI to deliver the UI of the app. This is Foundation UI arguably on the recipient end. It's just surfacing content, and even the way that this is set up, a template for a page. So where's my standard page? Page standard. It's just markup, page content, and then markup. So let's take a look at the markup header. Markup header is going to be, there's your doc type, HTML, grabbing content from the page itself as well as the site profile. Going in, allowing you to set this up. It's all just markup. So if I want to go in there and change anything, it's not changing across all the pages. It's actually not even touching design elements. It's just going in here and making a change on the fly and it'll clean things up. The site profiles, pretty basic stuff. I had the ability to go in here and add additional staff, give them full admin or limited access. I get the ability to go in here and start cleaning stuff up. I can change content type on output, and that's all from not necessarily the CMS, but the CMS, think of it as this way, and I can even do a whole screencast showcasing this. The CMS is part A of an A-B solution, a two-part solution. Part A is the content and content management. Secure access does not allow you to get in unless you're authenticated. The B side is the website database, which reads content based on a combination of who you are, which you'd be anonymous coming into this, as well as what you have, and it evaluates what you have access to view. And if it's public content is published within the CMS, sure, you can see it. If it's restricted, then it evaluates your access. However, you could hack/slash this database all you want. I think anonymous is set to reader, and you're not going to get to the actual content. So it's a great example of separation of data and presentation, because the data, as far as this database is concerned, is stateless. Well, it's stateful, it resides in a separate database, but it's stateless, and that's just proxying the content and sourcing it out. So the nice thing is you can have 15 of these databases sitting out there, all with different websites, and as long as it's pointing to a given site, it only grabs its content. So navigation, searching, everything's all built in. It's pretty slick, but that's an example of a foundation application that I can show you today that's Foundation XPages, and fully functional. Outside of when this is in edit mode and I click that, but that's more Domino than anything, and that's just me being lazy and not working around it. So, any other questions? Because we are 3 minutes past the hour. More than happy to take any other questions if there are, but if not, I'll be wrapping it up. This recording will be, this session is being recorded. It will be available for playback on YouTube/Chris Toohey, and I might broadcast it as well on YouTube.com/DominoGuru. I'm going to be building out that brand through different videos as well, building out that channel certainly. Thank you all for those who attended. Listen to me babble on and stammer through, and you've probably heard me say 3,000 times. But thank you very much for coming. I will hopefully see you and more on Wednesday when we talk about creating layout type custom controls for our XPages applications. And as always, we'll see you next time. Take care.